Big news of today happens last night. Bryce Underwood announced he is returning to Michigan for his sophomore season. And I wasn't quite sure how people were going to react to this because obviously Bryce Underwood's season last year was a tad bit disappointing, but I believe the expectations on an 18-year-old freshman were just so drastically high compared to what they should have been. Because there's very few instances of an 18-year-old bringing his team to, like real relevancy and success as a freshman. We've got Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, and that's pretty much it in my lifetime for the true freshmen that have done that. And for as much as we want to call it a disappointing season, they still won 9 games. The problem is in their 3 losses in the regular season, man, Bryce Underwood kind of stunk it up. And his 3 worst games of the year were unfortunately against Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Michigan State, where he failed to complete 50% of his passes in each of those games, averaged less than 100 yards through the air. He threw 1 touchdown and 1 interception and 0 touchdowns in those 3 games combined and had 25 total rushing yards. Those numbers are bad enough to where they don't even sound real. How do you complete less than 50% of your passes in 3 of your biggest games of the year and go under 100 yards in all 3 of those games? That's about as bad as it can possibly be. So I understand where the frustration stems from, but I guess I'd go right to his head coach was a complete psychopath who rained terror and bad vibes all over the locker room the entire season. His offensive coordinator was maybe underqualified for the job and now is the offensive coordinator at Missouri, so talk about a downgrade. This is also the person that was supposed to be his quarterback's coach. And you saw it in the bowl game. Like, there's just a couple throws that he'll have every week where it's just like, that just doesn't look right, man. Somebody needs to get inside this guy's head and actually go to like a quarterback camp and get these mechanics right, because there's just so much with little stuff that needs to be fixed where it just doesn't look like a 5-star quarterback. But then he'll flash to place where it's like, well, you just can't teach that. Now that he actually has an adult in the room and a real coaching staff, and they're able to talk to him and make sure that he believes that he can have success at Michigan, whether that's individual stats, getting to the draft, winning national championships, maybe it's all of it. I think Michigan fans should be absolutely thrilled that this guy is back. And now that he is back, I think it's officially on. Year 1, Kyle Whittingham, I think the expectation should be to get into the playoffs. Because, yes, you had 9 wins this year. You were 1 win away. Odds are that playoff field is expanding to 14 teams, so 9 or 10 wins next season probably gets you in. The schedule obviously looks pretty daunting right now with Oklahoma, Indiana, Iowa, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, those last 2 on the road. Yes, it's a much tougher schedule than it was last year, but you also have a real coaching staff. It's an upgrade there no matter what. Nothing's going to be worse than what Sharon Moore was. And you actually have real coaches around Bryce Underwood now. The other thing is, last year, within a week of signing Bryce Underwood, of him flipping from LSU to Michigan, you ended up landing 7 additional 4- and 5-star players out of high school. I don't think I have any reason to believe that that's not going to happen in the portal now. Now, Michigan hasn't, as of right now, landed anybody into the portal, but man, I'd be pretty shocked if they didn't start landing some of these guys. Like, okay, Bryce is here, I want to come play with Bryce. And yet last year was more of the lore of Bryce, he was a perfect prospect. And now that he's put some stuff on tape, we know he's not necessarily this perfect player. I still think from a player standpoint, that's a guy you want to go play with and attach yourself with. If you're a receiver, if you're a lineman, they've got something good going out here, why not hop on? I think this marks the official, hey, we can have big expectations for Kyle Whittingham in year number 1. He started 1 for 1 from the field. This was always goal number 1. Retain Bryce Underwood, check and check.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, you have to be happy if you're a Michigan fan. At least, obviously, you're happy in the fact that Bryce Underwood is coming back. Now, I've seen a collection of Michigan fans be like, oh, well, if he leaves, he leaves. Let him leave, whatever. I think that's just a little bit
insane
of
talk.
Being petty after what happened this season. Sure, whatever. But I think the big thing is that, one, Bryce Underwood is coming back, but it's the fact that Kyle Whittingham was able to get him back so soon. There was all this – you see all these different quarterbacks enter the transfer portal and just players in general nowadays in college football that you can't really rule anybody out. And I always thought the idea of Bryce entering the portal was a little far-fetched just because of everything that went down for him to get to Michigan in the first place. It'd just be wild to throw all that away after a year that they probably didn't have major expectations to go anywhere. But with everything that happened with Michigan this offseason, you never know, And so it's a great job from Kyle Whittingham and his new staff to come in here and not reestablish, but first off establish that relationship with Bryce Underwood. And so, yeah, I think that the expectations always in year 2 and 3 for Bryce Underwood were to get back to the playoff, be one of the best teams in the Big Ten. Now, we all thought that wasn't going to be with a brand new head coach, but I don't think the expectations change.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to put expectations on a first-year head coach of, hey, you got to be in the playoffs or this is going to be like an unsuccessful season. But when you have 9 wins with a psychopath as your head coach who, kind of just like draped all over the season, and you push that guy away and bring in to what a lot of people considered like one of the best coaches in college football out at Utah. Granted, this is obviously a much bigger stage. The coaching staff, I mean, it's an upgrade tenfold. You know what I mean? So I don't have any reason to think that this isn't going to be a much more highly functioning team, a team that has a lot more adults in the room, a team that, you can look at and take a lot more seriously.
That's actually focused on football?
Yeah, that's going to be a lot more prepared for these situations.
Yeah.
Like, whether or not they have the same amount of talent, put that aside for a second, they're going to be more well-run. Like, this is actually going to feel like a big-time college football program again because you've got a guy who's experienced in doing it in Kyle Whittingham, bringing over an offensive coordinator who's highly respected, who's had a quarterback's coach attached to him for the last 3 years and last 3 stops. And guess what? Here's the crazy part. The OC and the quarterback's coach were actually both former quarterbacks, unlike Chip Lindsey, who was the quarterback's coach and the OC, but once upon a time in his playing days was a wide receiver. I think there's a reason we didn't see the best of Bryce Underwood as a freshman. His coaching staff was awful. Awful. Now they bring in real guys, competent coaches. I think we see this enormous leap in Bryce Underwood. Not to pencil him in as a Heisman candidate or anything like that. That's probably even a year further.
Yeah, but he's gotten a full year under his belt. As far as having to go through the woes of a freshman quarterback, he experienced it all. He had the weird coach. He had the people that were holding him back.
I wish he was just weird.
Now, obviously, you're right. Obviously, it's not like Bryce Underwood was awesome, but like you said, every time he showed a flash of what is that throw? What is he doing? Why is he throwing it 100 miles an hour? What is that decision? Every time he did one of those, he had a play where it was whoa, that's an awesome play. What a nice play there from Bryce. And so I think that now that he's gotten a full year under his belt, you can expect we can actually put the big-time realistic expectations on Bryce Underwood. There was never these you could have hoped that the $10 or $12 million tag, whatever it is, I always forget.
I think it was 12.
You could have assumed that tag was he needs to be good right away. Sure, if you feel that way, that's fine. But at the end of the day, he was a true freshman quarterback. Now that he's gotten a full year of starting every game under his belt and being with a good team and now has a coach that you feel better about, next year is the time that we apply the really high-pressure expectations on him, I think.
So now I think it's officially, hey, we're in playoffs or bust mode. I think last year, there was obviously some Michigan fans that, hey, a couple things have to go right and we're going to be in the playoffs, and those were fair expectations because at the end of the day, they were 1 win away from getting into the playoffs. For as bad as a season as it is going to go down as, 1 win away from being in the playoffs, And now you're going into a season, like I said, much harder schedule. But in year 2 of Bryce Underwood, an upgrade at coaching staff across the board, I think, and an expanded playoff field, maybe most importantly, I think it's totally fair to say, you know what? I don't care that it's a brand new head coach. We should expect to be in the playoffs next year.
Right, even with the tough schedule, though, huh?
The schedule is insane, man.
Schedule's insane next year.
To
Indiana,
have to play Indiana,
Oregon, Ohio State,
and then those last 2 being on the road, and Oklahoma, which shouldn't be any pushover game. Who knows what Penn State's going to be under Matt Campbell?
Who knows what UTEP's going to look like?
Who knows what Pat Fitzgerald, Michigan State Spartans are going to look like?
But good point with Penn State, though. We can't just chalk them up to be bad again. I doubt that's going to happen. They're at least going to be solid.
They're going to be better than they were last year.
Yeah, I mean you have 4 really tough Big Ten games this season.
Luckily, the Penn State game's at home for Michigan,
right?
And the Indiana one, but
Indiana
Indiana might not matter.
Nick Marsh about to go crazy.
Having to go on the road to Oregon, though, those are the tough ones when you got to go out to the West Coast because we saw that happen this year with USC, and that was maybe the least prepared they've looked all season long. Right. But in hindsight, all these games where they were unprepared, it kind of just adds up. And I have a hard time thinking that Kyle Whittingham is ever going to be in a situation where the team's not prepared. There's a distraction going on. It's not his full focus. I mean, the fact that they won 9 games last year is almost like, looking back at that, it's almost a miracle, right? They won 9 games with Sharon Moore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they've got a guy who's actually focused. I saw a real stat. I saw it on Twitter, so I had to go confirm it myself. Kyle Whittingham follows 3 women on Instagram, his wife and his 2 children. And that's it. No other women. Already off to a better start than Sharon Moore. Yeah. He's not.
Wow.
He's 66 years old.
He doesn't have any cousins.
No, he's staying focused.
No other female family members to follow. That's crazy.
Yep. And Sharon Moore's out here, hundreds of OnlyFans models.
It's only people he follows. Yeah.
Just there were signs. The fact that we didn't see it, there were signs. All right. So here's my question to the Michigan fans: are you ready to put the big time expectations on Bryce Underwood and Kyle Whittingham in year number 1 for the coach and year number 2 for the quarterback?